Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're gonna talk about the books I read in February, which was kind of a good reading month, but also kind of a really cathartic reading month, I would say, because I finally bit the bullet and DNF'd what I did not want to read. And yeah, that made it 3 DNFs in the shortest month of the year, but they were all really necessary, and hopefully I can carry that energy through the rest of the year. But yeah, it felt really good to just be like, no, I have no interest in reading these books. I really don't want to do it, and I don't have to do it because, you know, I'm my own person. I can decide for myself what I want to read and what not. So yeah, that felt really, really good. So I'm gonna talk about the DNFs at the end. Let's first talk about the books I've read and in the order that I read them. I'm also pretty sure that the first book that I read in February will be the best book of the year, because I was just like so happy, and that is Bad Eater by Kylie Lee Baker. And this book is so good. This is the Evernight edition of the book, and I really, really like it. We have this, you know, monster hunting our main character in a subway, which is like at the beginning of the book. It's quite an important part of the book. And then if you look at it, we have an incredibly pretty book underneath. I love this book so much. The design of the book is just so good. And then we have a reversible cover with some cleaning supplies on the front, which also incredibly fitting. And this one is a horror book, though it is not a scared out of your mind jump scare horror book. It is more like existential horror, in my opinion. And it is just the whole the theme and the environment and just, you know, how everything is that gives you the horror. This is a book about our main character, who is a Chinese American woman, and she lives in New York together with her sister. And at the beginning of the book, her sister actually dies because somebody pushes her in front of a train, like a subway train, and whispers the words "Bad Eater." And it is the pandemic during the story, or like at the beginning of the story, and we all know what, you know, happened in real life, and that is also what happened in the book, that the people are being like, oh, it comes from China and all Chinese people are now the worst person. You know, it's this really, really horrible thing that actually happened in real life. And so her sister dies and she has to see that. And then we skip a little bit to a few months later, and we do get to realize that our main character has a lot of mental health problems. None of them are like named specifically, so I can only, like, you know, tell you how I interpreted them. So I'm pretty sure she at least has some depression, OCD, those other two that I'm pretty sure that she definitely has, and she has a lot of trouble with like cleaning and rituals and stuff like that. So a few months after her sister dies, she goes and becomes a crime scene cleaner. And that is pretty much where the story goes off. And then we're still in like this pandemic stage. She's a germaphobe, definitely. She has a lot of trouble making any kind of human connection, and she feels like a pretty empty husk because she always kind of lived through her sister. She just did what her sister did as well, but it wasn't really even a friendly relationship with her sister, which made it really like hard for her. They have different mothers, which also is like a bigger problem because her sister is like fully Chinese and she's Chinese American. So there's also this discrepancy. But yeah, so we have kind of all of that together, like her fears and, you know, her germophobia, like coupled with like the pandemic, and all of that comes together and makes it really, really hard for her. And that is kind of where the horror starts, because she then gets haunted, and that is what the book is about. It is a brilliant book. Just go out and read it. It is a brilliant book. I loved every second of it. I saw myself in some aspects that I did not want to see myself in. But that also meant that the main character just like was so much more real to me, and I think that really made the book even better. So yeah, 5 stars. Best book of the year so far. Following that, I read the next Clive Cussler book, which is a Dirk Pitt adventure. I cannot tell you anything about the story. I've forgotten all of it already. I'm really sorry. I don't think it was anything else than all of the other ones. I give it 3 stars. It is an average adventure novel. I'm pretty tired of these. I don't mind reading them, but I don't know what to say for reviews, because this is a book in like a series of adventure stories. You always have like a pretty woman scientist, and then you always have Dirk Pitt or Kurt Austin with the Numa people, and they save everyone. There's politics involved. It is an adventure novel, you know, you get me. I can't really tell you much about it because I've forgotten all of it. They never stay in my head for long, which I don't know. You can see it as a plus or a minus. But yeah, I'm just reading through them. I would never buy them again, but I bought so many that I'm still making my way through them. Then we have a book that I was really disappointed reading it, and that is Red Rising. I think the blurb just does not give you a realistic idea of the book. This is a sci-fi book that is about the guy from the red Martian people. They are humans, but like they live on Mars now, and they work in the mines to terraform Mars. And what they don't know is that Mars is already terraformed. There are a lot of planets that are terraformed, but they are being kept as kind of slave people, and the other colors are living like pretty like free lives on Mars, and the highest color is gold, and they are pretty like war bringing people pretty much. And our main character, pretty much his wife, more or less kills herself. She doesn't really kill herself, but she starts a silent rebellion, or like a non-violent rebellion pretty much, and he gets out of the mines because of that. And then his job is pretty much to like make it so that they can save all of the red people of Mars who live under terrible conditions as slaves. And I would have loved a book about the conditions on like in Mars where the red people are living, but we only get a really, really small sliver of that. And then we don't even get to know his wife really before she dies. I just felt it was way too rushed in the beginning. And then the second half, but like a little bit more, is just war. It's just murder. It's just aggression and violence that I personally felt really, really senseless, and for me that was just not interesting. I personally don't like books like that, but you don't get the impression through the blurb on the back, which is kind of sad, because I got gifted the whole series because I thought it sounded interesting, and now I'm not really sure I want to continue with the series because it's just so much violence that I personally don't enjoy. And I would have loved to actually get more of the living on Red Mars, like for the red people on Mars, and you know, that, which is why I gave it 3 stars. It's definitely not a bad book. There are a lot of people out there who love the book. I personally didn't enjoy it because it's just not the book for me. And then the next book I actually finished was The Testament by John Grisham. This is the by far worst book I've read in this month. This is a 1 star because pretty much this is just a book praising Christianity and glorifying and preaching how good it is to bring Christianity to people who won't want it. But the real story is pretty much, we have like this rich old guy who's a pretty shitty person, and he has a pretty shitty family, like 3 of them, and he doesn't want his money going to all of those families, so he puts in the will that his illegitimate daughter is supposed to get the money that he leaves everyone. And so the lawyers of the lawyer firm that works for him, they have to find this woman, and she lives in the jungle in Brazilian and is a missionary for a Christian church. And yeah, that is what the book is about. I hated it. Not one likable character in the whole book. The lawyer that they sent after her, or the attorney, is like a recovering alcoholic, but you know, it just wasn't good. I didn't enjoy it. It felt incredibly preachy. I don't have a problem with characters being religious in books. I think it's actually really good to have that in books to, you know, get different lifestyles. But it was just so preachy, and it was like this, like portrayed as if she did something so good for the indigenous people, but like nobody needs your religion if they don't want it from themselves. You don't need to go places and force them or try to force them to follow your religion. It's I could go and rant. I'm not gonna do that. I hated the book. It was 1 star. I don't think John Grisham is for me. Then the next to last book I finished was the third book in the Malloreon series, which is Demon Lord of Kerenda. I give it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. We did get a little bit more into some classical themes of fantasy. We get a plague in the book, which was really great. We get like a kind of demon invasion. We have a lot of interesting conversations between the characters. We have a lot of loyalty testing kind of, and maybe just having like real conversations with like some of your enemies and all of that. Like, it was a really interesting part of the series. I really liked it. It was a really good fantasy. Go and get yourself some David Eddings if you haven't read any of his yet, because it is amazing. I really liked it. And then I ended the month with James Rowland's book, which is called Subterranean. This is an action adventure novel. I really liked it. I give it 4 stars. It is about we have a group of scientists who got put together by a military scientist, and they are supposed to go under the Antarctic. They discovered like this cave system, and they sent this team in to find out what is happening there. And yeah, because they kind of found some ruins that look like housing for people, and it doesn't make any sense of like with the dating. It dates back to more than what we know the first human beings were living. And so yeah, they go in there and they try to find what is up there. And none of the characters are particularly likable, but they're also not unlikable. I felt kind of neutral about a lot of the characters. We have one pretty obvious bad guy from the beginning. For us, the people in the book don't know it, but we pretty much know that he's the bad guy. And then we have some interesting creatures that we are meeting throughout the book. It was really cool. It is, I feel like, kind of slightly supernatural thriller. It is not really supernatural. It goes a little bit in like the lizard people kind of direction. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, even though I didn't love the characters, but they were kind of fitting for the book. There's a lot of like men reducing women to how they look. I hate it in books, but I could see past it for the story. So if you are particularly sensitive to that, you might not enjoy it. I feel like with a lot of older adventure novels, it's just part of the books. I don't love it. It's annoying, but you know, it also builds characters, so I don't know. Sometimes I hate it, sometimes I like, okay, it's part of the books. It's, you know, it's a kind of story device in itself as well, and yeah. I don't know. Also, this book has a really brilliant ending. I really liked the ending. It kind of redeemed some of the characters a little bit, so I did really like that. So yeah, I would go back and read more of James Rowland's, which is good because I do have more of his books. I just haven't gotten around to reading more of them yet, but yeah, I did really like that one a lot more than the last one I read by him. So those are all of the books I actually finished, which are which are only 6 books. Yeah, I didn't have the best of luck with the books this month, but I had some really good ones and some really shitty ones, you know. Now, let's talk about the books I did not finish. The ones I DNF'd. Let's start with the Final Girl support group. I do not like any of the characters in this book. I cannot stand them. I'm really sorry. I feel like Grady Hendrix writes really unlikable characters that have really weird interactions. I personally, yeah, I've read other books. I finished one, I started another one. I just don't get along with the characters that Grady Hendrix writes, and that was the same as this one. I got halfway through the book, and then I just gave up. I just could not go on, because the book kind of hinges on you liking the characters, because the main characters in here are all final girls who survived a serial killer, and they all have their problems and their different lives, but they have like a support group, and then one of the killers comes back up and starts killing again, or like at least people are dying again. And yeah, I just didn't like the characters, and if I'm not there for the characters in the novel, then what am I doing, you know? So I had to let it go. It is a definite DNF. Then we have one that was just dumb. I just did not read the description correctly, and that is Into This River I Drown by TJ Klune. This is a gay romance with supernatural elements. I do not like romance books. I have no idea why I thought I would like this. I put it on my wishlist and somebody gifted it to me for my birthday. This was before I read more of TJ Klune. I did really like The House in the Cerulean Sea, but that is so far the only book I like by him. So I think that might be an outlier. But yeah, I did try to get through it. I just could not. I found the whole situation in the book really awkward because our main character, he grieves his father still, and it's a few years ago that his father died under through an accident, and he works now in the gas station that belonged to his father, and he's still grieving. He is still really, really grieving this relationship he had with his father. And then this angel comes from the heaven, and they have like an insta-lovey relationship, kind of. It feels really weird. I couldn't get into it. I'm really sorry. But yeah, it's my fault. I should have read that this is a gay romance, and I have never gotten along with romance books. I mean, I did love The House in the Cerulean Sea, but I felt like the focus was more on the children and not on the relationship between the adults. And then we have the last one, and that is a Fairy Loot book. Well, I got this in Fairy Loot. It's obviously not a Fairy Loot book, but that is These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. I got this in Fairy Loot. I'm slowly making my way through them. I did not like it. This is your typical YA fantasy with a love triangle in it. I got so far as to the first mention of the love triangle, and I noped out of the book, I have to be honest. It reads a little bit like Cinderella in the beginning. Our main character and her little sister, they're living with her aunt because her mother left them to go with a fae man, and they have to like clean for the aunt, and they are in this really weird contract that they have to buy themselves out of, but the conditions get worse and worse, and they kind of cannot get the money to buy themselves out of. And then at some point, the aunt just sells the younger sister to the fae. And obviously our main character is really upset, and she talks to her magician apprentice friend, and he's like, oh, don't go to the fae, don't go after your sister, it's gonna be really dangerous. And then somebody else is like, yeah, and the fae seem to all take human women as like partners, or like as kind of slaves. They kind of trick them into relationships, whatever, something like this. And then everybody is focusing on that there might be a fae prince that might be interested in our main character, and I'm like, my eye, she wants to get her sister. She isn't interested in a relationship, and she loves the mage apprentice guy. And then that is obviously the beginning of a love triangle, and I stopped after that because sorry, not sorry, I just cannot take this seriously. If you like books like this, totally fine. I just don't. And that is one of the reasons why I discontinued getting the Fairy Loot, I think like at least a year and a half ago, or like 2 years ago, because that is the type of book that always came in the Fairy Loot, even though they just promised fantasy books. And for me, this is romantasy. And yeah, I don't like it. So I DNF'd it because I just could not get through there. I read like 40 pages and it was a bust after that. So yeah, those are the 3 that I did not even finish, and then we have 6 that I at least finished. And so yeah, I am actually pretty happy with the month because I did do, like, I made some really good decisions with like what I'm continuing reading and what I didn't continue reading. And yeah, I hope you like this little bit chaotic book review video. If you've read any of these books, please leave your opinion of them down below. I would love to hear that. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!